All right, so today we are diving into the fascinating world of fish caves. We're going deep on why these aren't just, random rocks and logs, but really essential pieces of the puzzle when you have like a thriving koi or goldfish pond. And our guide for this deep dive is the expertise of Superior Ponds. They've really cracked the code on keeping fish happy and healthy. And trust me, this is about way more than just aesthetics. It's about understanding the, secret lives of our finned friends.
You know what's interesting? We put so much effort into how our ponds look, but sometimes we forget that fish have needs beyond just swimming around,
Yeah.
like building a house and forgetting to put in the bedrooms.
Oh, that's such a good point. And that actually reminds me of a story. A pond owner named Emily, she built this dream pond, but learned a tough lesson about those needs. She had this beautiful setup in Lakeville, picture perfect, with these like stunning koi. But then, almost overnight, several of her koi vanished, and the rest were acting totally spooked, just darting around like they're in a panic.
Yeah, that kind of sudden change in behavior, it's a huge red flag. It almost always means that something's off in their environment.
Exactly. So Emily, being the super sleuth that she is, she set up a motion-activated camera to catch the culprit. And turns out, it was a heron, just casually helping himself to an all-you-can-eat koi buffet, without any shelter. Those fish were completely exposed.
Yeah, herons are a serious threat. And what's fascinating is how persistent they can be. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology found that herons can eat fish up to 10 inches long. And they won't stop coming back to a feeding spot until the food's gone.
Wow. So it's amazing how a simple thing like a fish cave can make all the difference. That's essentially what Emily did. She added a couple of log-style caves, and it completely changed the game. The heron moved on, her remaining koi calmed down, and the whole pond went back to being this peaceful oasis. But what I found really eye-opening is that caves aren't just about hiding from predators. They actually tap into something deeper, the natural instincts of fish.
Absolutely. And the wild fish have all sorts of nooks and crannies to explore, places to rest, breed, and interact. And depriving them of that structure can really throw them off balance.
I've actually noticed that some of my fish seem to have lost their vibrant colors.
Yeah.
Could that be related to stress from not having enough places to hide?
It absolutely could be. A study in the Journal of Aquatic Animal Health found that fish with access to proper hiding spaces had a 35% increase in breeding activity. And more importantly, a significant reduction in illness. They actually measured cortisol levels, which is a key indicator of stress, and found that fish with caves were way less stressed. Koi especially love secluded spots for laying their eggs, so those caves become little nurseries.
Wow, so we're talking about more than just keeping them safe. It's about creating an environment where they can actually thrive.
It'd be healthy.
That's exactly it. It's about going beyond just survival to creating a mini ecosystem where they can actually flourish.
You're spot on. Think of it this way. Fish are constantly on edge in an open pond. That hypervigilance, that constant state of alert, it takes a toll. Just like with humans, chronic stress weakens their immune systems.
That makes sense. I hadn't considered how constantly looking over their shoulder could actually make them sick.
The University of Florida's aquaculture department has done some really interesting research on this, and they actually identified stress as one of the leading causes of death in koi. Providing them with places to de-stress can literally be a lifesaver.
So it's like we're creating these little stress-free zones where they can just chill out and be themselves.
Exactly, and not just for the fish. Those caves can become havens for other beneficial creatures too, like frogs and smaller fish. It's all about creating that balance, that sense of a thriving community.
Okay, so fish caves. Good for the fish, good for the pond, good for the overall vibe. But let's get practical for a second. What kinds of caves are out there, and how do we know which one is right for our specific setup?
Luckily, Superior Ponds has a whole range of designs, each with its own pros and cons. We've got natural rock caves, perfect if you're going for a rugged natural look. Then there are log-style caves, great for any size pond and those who prefer a more woodland aesthetic. And for the DIY folks out there, there are prefabricated PVC or plastic caves, which are super versatile.
So many options. But no matter what type of cave we choose, I'm guessing placement is key, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to put a cave in a spot where it's just going to get blasted by the filter current all day long.
You're thinking like a true pond pro. Placement is absolutely crucial. Superior Ponds recommends choosing a location that's deep enough to provide that sense of security, while also being mindful of things like water flow and access to other features of the pond. And of course, you want to make sure the cave has enough openings so the fish can easily get in and out. No one wants a fish traffic jam down there.
Well, that would be a nightmare. I'm really curious to hear more. about how all of this works together. The different types of caves, the materials, the placement, and what that means for actually creating a pond. That truly mimics a fish's natural habitat.
That's a great question, and it's actually the perfect segue into our next section, where we'll be diving deeper into the nitty-gritty of fish cave design and installation.
So we've established that fish caves are essential, but I'm imagining there's a whole art to choosing the right type and placing it just so. What should we be thinking about when it comes to creating that ideal habitat?
Well, let's start with those natural rock caves, like we mentioned. These are like the classic tried and true option, especially if you've got a larger pond. And you're aiming for that like rugged natural look.
Yeah, I could already picture it. Big, sturdy rocks,
Hmm.
creating these cool little grottos. Super low maintenance too, right?
Exactly. They're incredibly durable, so you don't have to worry about them breaking down or needing to be replaced anytime soon. Plus, they blend in seamlessly with the environment.
Sounds like a win-win. But what about those log-style caves? They seem to be pretty popular, and I know they worked wonders for Emily and her koi.
Log-style caves. Whether they're made from real hollowed-out logs or that like faux wood material, definitely have a certain charm. They give you that woodland pond vibe, and they're great for pretty much any size pond.
Plus, they just look so cozy.
Right.
But I'm guessing there are some things to keep in mind with those, right? Like making sure they're properly secured and won't roll around if you've got some rambunctious fish.
You're absolutely right. You wouldn't want your fish redecorating the pond by accident. Stability is key no matter what type of cave you choose. And speaking of different types, we can't forget about those prefabricated PVC or
Yeah.
plastic caves.
Those seem like a good option for people who are maybe a bit more DIY inclined. Or if you're working with a smaller pond.
They are, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes these days. Some even have cool little details like plants or rocks molded into the design. It's a great way to get creative and personalize your pond.
Okay, but I'm also thinking with plastic especially, there's got to be a focus on quality, right? Making sure the materials are safe for the fish and won't leach anything harmful into the water.
That's a crucial point. You always want to make sure you're choosing materials that are fish safe and specifically designed for aquatic environments.
So let's say we've done our research
Mm.
and we've got our perfect cave, we're ready to install. Where do we even begin?
Well, the first thing you need to think about is location. It's all about real estate. Even for fish, you want to choose a spot in the deeper part of the pond, ideally away from any strong currents, or filter outflow. This gives your fish the best of both worlds, protection from predators and a stable, comfortable environment.
So like a peaceful little neighborhood, tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the pond.
Exactly. And think about access, too. You want to make sure your cave has at least 2 openings, or that it's big enough for your fish to turn around comfortably inside. Imagine getting stuck in your own home. Not a fun experience for anyone, fish included.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. What about blending the cave in with the rest of the environment? I'm guessing you wouldn't just want to plop it down in the middle of the pond and call it a day.
You're catching on quickly. Integrating the cave naturally is important. You can do this by using things like aquatic plants, rocks, or even the substrate. That's the material on the bottom of your pond, like gravel or sand. Partially covering the cave with these elements helps it blend in and encourages your fish to explore and use it.
It's almost like you're creating these little underwater gardens. So it's functional, but also visually appealing.
Precisely. And of course, you need to make sure the cave is secure, especially if it's made of a lighter material. You don't want it floating around or getting knocked over by playful fish. If you're installing a DIY cave, be extra careful not to damage your pond liner with any sharp edges or poorly secured materials.
That's a great reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the aesthetics and forget about the practical side of things.
Mm.
But I'm really curious, once you've got your fish cave installed and everything's looking great, what kind of changes can you expect to see in the pond itself? Do the fish immediately settle in? Or does it take them a while to get used to their new digs?
That's a great question, and it actually speaks to the fascinating way fish adapt to their surroundings. One of the first things you'll probably notice is a shift in their behavior. They'll be less skittish, less likely to dart around at the slightest movement.
So more relaxed,
Yeah.
more at ease, kind of like that feeling you get when you finally curl up on the couch after a long day.
Exactly. And that reduction in stress can have a ripple effect on their overall health. Remember that University of Florida study we talked about? Those researchers found that fish with access to caves showed a decrease in stress hormones, which led to a stronger immune system and less susceptibility to diseases.
So it's not just about peace of mind. It's about creating an environment where they can actually thrive and be healthy.
Precisely. And over time, you might even see an increase in breeding activity as the fish feel more secure and comfortable in their surroundings. A well-placed cave can provide the perfect little nesting spot for those koi.
That's amazing. It really highlights how much thought goes into creating a successful pond environment. It's not just about throwing some water and fish in a hole
Mhm.
and hoping for the best.
It really isn't. And it's fascinating how even small changes, like adding a few well-placed caves, can have a huge impact on the overall health and balance of the ecosystem. You might even see an increase in other beneficial pond life, like frogs or small fish, who also appreciate a safe haven. It's all about creating that interconnectedness, that sense of a thriving community.
I love that. But before we get too carried away with the zen of it all, let's bring it back to our friend Emily and her heron problem. What kind of impact did installing those log-style caves have on her pond, beyond just scaring off the heron?
Well, the heron definitely moved on, which was a huge relief for Emily. But what was really remarkable was the change in her koi's behavior. They went from being skittish and stressed to being calm and active. Their colors seemed brighter, and they were more likely to swim out in the open and interact with each other.
So not just surviving, but thriving. It's almost like they were thanking her for finally understanding their needs.
Exactly. And Emily herself felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had created a safe and enriching environment. For her fish, the pond became this tranquil space where she could relax and reconnect with nature.
That's the dream. And it brings up a really interesting point, this idea of becoming stewards of our own little ecosystems. It's not just about owning a pond, it's about understanding the delicate balance of life within it and making choices that support that balance.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about shifting our perspective from ownership to stewardship, recognizing that our actions have a direct impact on the well-being of the creatures who share our ponds.
I love that. It's a responsibility, but also a privilege to be able to create these little havens for wildlife right in our own backyards. But I'm also thinking, stewardship can feel like a pretty big concept. What does that actually look like in practice for the average pond owner?
That's a fantastic question, and one that's worth exploring in more detail. It encompasses everything, from choosing compatible fish species to providing proper filtration and aeration, all the way to understanding the needs of all the living things that call our ponds home. It's a holistic approach that goes beyond just aesthetics to create a truly thriving ecosystem. And that's what we'll be diving into in our final segment, where we'll explore the broader implications of responsible pond ownership and how even small actions can make a big difference.
It's interesting, as we've been talking about fish caves and creating these little havens has really made me think about how much we can learn from observing the natural world.
Yeah, it's amazing how much insight we can gain just by paying attention to the subtle ways that ecosystems work. And it seems like that's really at the heart of responsible pond ownership. Understanding those interconnected relationships and making choices that support the whole system.
Yeah, that's a key point. It's not just about the individual fish, but about creating an environment where they can thrive as part of a larger community.
So it's like we're stepping into the role of caretakers, making sure that all the pieces of the puzzle are in place.
Exactly. And that starts with being mindful of the choices we make from the very beginning.
Like what kinds of fish we introduce to the pond in the first place.
Exactly. It's crucial to choose species that are compatible with each other. And with the size and conditions of the pond, you wouldn't want to put a large, aggressive fish in a small pond with delicate, peaceful species.
Right, that would be like inviting a shark to a goldfish party.
A recipe for disaster. And it's not just about compatibility. You also need to consider the carrying capacity of the pond, how many fish it can support, without overwhelming the system.
So it's like being a landlord, making sure you don't overcrowd your tenants. That's a great analogy. And just like a responsible landlord, you need to provide the right amenities. In the case of a pond, that means things like proper filtration and aeration.
Now, those are two terms. That, I think, might need a little more explanation. Filtration, I'm guessing, is about keeping the water clean.
Exactly. A good filtration system removes debris, waste products, and excess nutrients from the water, which helps maintain a healthy environment for your fish and plants.
Okay, and what about aeration? I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
Aeration is all about adding oxygen to the water, just like us. Fish need oxygen to breathe, and a well-aerated pond ensures that there's enough dissolved oxygen to support all the life within it.
So it's like adding a little bit of fresh air to the underwater world.
Precisely. And you can achieve this through a variety of methods, like waterfalls, fountains, or even specialized aeration systems.
It's fascinating how many factors go into creating a healthy pond environment. It really is a delicate balancing act.
It is, and one of the most important aspects of that balance is understanding the role of beneficial bacteria.
Okay, bacteria, I'm usually thinking about those as the bad guy.
I know. We often associate bacteria with illness, but in a pond, they're actually essential for maintaining a healthy ecosystem. These beneficial bacteria help break down waste products and convert harmful ammonia into less toxic nitrates.
So they're like the cleanup crew of the pond.
Exactly, and supporting their growth is crucial for keeping the water quality in check.
This is all starting to make so much sense. It's like we're peeling back the layers of a complex system and seeing how everything fits together.
And as we gain a deeper understanding of these interconnected relationships, we can make more informed choices that benefit the entire pond ecosystem.
So even small actions, like adding a few fish caves or choosing the right plants, can make a big difference in the long run.
Absolutely. Every choice we make as pond owners has ripple effects. And by embracing that stewardship role, we can create these vibrant, thriving spaces that not only benefit the fish, but also bring us joy and a deeper connection to nature.
I love that. It's not just about owning a pretty water feature. It's about creating a little slice of wilderness right in our own backyards.
And who knows, maybe by observing these miniature ecosystems, we can even learn something about how to create a more balanced and harmonious relationship with the natural world as a whole.
I think you're right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of fish caves, I want to leave our listeners with this. Imagine looking out at your pond and see not just water and fish, but a thriving ecosystem, teeming with life, where every creature plays a vital role. That's the power of understanding and embracing the concept of stewardship. It's about creating a space where nature can flourish right in our own backyards.
And that's a legacy worth leaving behind.